Howdy. Yo, what's going on, my anime and manga nerds? Welcome back to Calvary's Cave. Today, we're jumping straight into the Millennium Falcon Arc of the Berserk manga, and man, Miura is not letting off of the gas on this one, so without further ado, why don't we just get into it? So Guts finally makes his way back to Godot's hut after all of the chaos in Albion, and right away, he's hit with a really heavy, heartbreaking loss. It's such a bittersweet moment. On one hand, it hurts like hell, but on the other hand, Godot actually got to live a full life, and that's something Guts isn't used to seeing. He's lost so many friends in brutal battles over the years that watching someone close to him pass away peacefully, surrounded by people who cared about him, almost feels foreign. Godot got to spend his final days quietly with Erica and Rickert, living simply and doing what he loved, and there's something really comforting about that. And in a story this dark, it was actually a pretty nice send-off, knowing that at least one person Guts cared about managed to find some peace and happiness at the end of his days, instead of dying violently like so many others. It still stings, obviously, but Guts has already lost so much, and this is just another reminder of how everything just keeps slipping away from him. But on the other hand, it also felt kinda wholesome. After that heavy moment with Godot, we get some really quiet, emotional scenes where Guts is just sitting there trying to process everything. In this moment, he actually makes a promise to Erica. He tells her that he's gonna stay there at the little hut by the mines with her, Rickert, and Casca. And you can tell it's not easy for him to say those words. He knows Griffith has already been resurrected and is out there in a physical body right now. And for the first time, Griffith is actually reachable with his sword. Puck even calls him out on it right away, basically saying, there's no way you can keep that promise. You know what's going on right now, and Puck is right. Deep down, Guts would love nothing more than to just stay there, live quietly with Rickert and Casca and Erica, and finally put the fighting behind him. But he also knows that the situation has completely changed. Up until now, he's been traveling with almost no hope of ever actually beating Griffith. But now that Griffith is flesh and blood again, Guts is forced to ask himself the big question: what is the path forward? Does he stay here and try to forget everything? Or does he stay true to his gut and go after Griffith once and for all? You can see the real internal struggle playing out on his face. It's one of those rare moments where the show actually slows down and lets you feel how torn Guts actually is. But we're literally in the first chapter of the Millennium Falcon Arc, or the Falcon of the Millennium, however you want to call it, and we are already getting interrupted in the worst way possible. Griffith shows up at Guts' home, the one place that was supposed to be safe for a little while, and before Guts and the others even make it back there, Griffith had already taken it upon himself to manipulate Rickert. He plays it off like he's just an old buddy who wants to have a friendly chat. It is honestly insane. We get zero time to breathe, no break, no moment to recover from Godot's death. Griffith is already here, moving pieces behind the scenes and messing with Rickert's head. It feels like Miura is trying to tell us, like, yeah, we're not stopping at all. The Millennium Falcon Arc is starting really fast. But Guts wastes absolutely no time. The second that he sees Griffith, he makes his move and goes straight for him. Now, of course, Rickert is super confused because Guts has never told him the full story about what happened. Hot take, I know, but I do feel like Rickert should have been able to read the room a little bit better in that moment. But then, right as Guts is about to land a real strike on Griffith, Zod teleports in out of nowhere and blocks the attack. And just like that, we get one of the sickest fight scenes in the entire series. But what makes it even better is that Rickert is standing there on the sidelines completely in awe, basically narrating the whole fight for us like he's a sports commentator. The way that he's reacting and describing everything just adds a fun extra layer to it. There's seriously no time to process anything that's happening. One second we're having this quiet emotional moment at the hut, and the next we're thrown into this insane high-octane fight, and I was grinning the entire time. I couldn't get enough of it. And just to drive it all home, Zod is now officially acting as Griffith's personal bodyguard. The way he shows up and blocks Guts' attack without hesitation makes it crystal clear. His loyalty to Griffith is 100% complete. There's no doubt, no hesitation, nothing. He's fully in Griffith's corner now, and he's ready to throw hands with anyone who tries to touch him. It's such a wild shift when you think about how things used to be with Zod. Zod going from this unstoppable lone wolf all the way over to becoming Griffith's personal attack dog. It really shows how much has changed since the eclipse. But one thing that I wanted to get off my chest real quick, I really don't like it when the story destroys an important plot device strictly for the purpose of pushing the plot forward. We saw it in God of War when Kratos randomly destroys the gate to Jotunheim for basically no reason, and I feel the same way here. During the fight between Guts and Zod, they end up completely destroying the safe cave at Godot's hut. It happens in the heat of battle, but it feels pretty convenient. The cave was basically the only safe place that Guts and Casca had left, and now it's gone in like 30 seconds. So just like that, they're no longer safe there anymore. It forces them to leave and go find somewhere else, but it also feels a little bit too forced for my taste. It also looks like moving forward, the Millennium Falcon Arc is going to be pushing the story in two major plot lines. On one side, we have everything happening with Griffith, and then we also have Guts and his growing crew. The chapters are already starting to alternate between the two. One chapter focuses on Griffith's side, and the next on Guts and the group. And I'm pretty certain that that's going to be the main dynamic moving forward. We're basically going to be jumping back and forth between these two very different perspectives, watching how both sides develop in parallel. It's a really interesting structure, and I'm curious to see how it plays out as the arc continues. But then we cut back to Silent as he's reporting to the Kushan Empire along with the Bakiraka clan. And what do we see? Griffith is already there, and he's making light work of the entire Kushan Empire like it's nothing. This whole sequence feels like a really big step up for all of the characters and villains that we're going to be dealing with moving forward. It's almost like one after the other, these huge, legendary figures, big name knights, mythical warriors, and powerful leaders keep showing up to pledge their loyalty to Griffith. Meanwhile, Griffith is just sitting there aura farming in the background the whole time. The confidence is insane. It's actually really cool to watch. The way that the story is introducing all of these heavy hitters while Griffith casually builds his new empire. It gives you that massive something big is coming feeling. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that Guts has an answer for any of this. Every single one of these guys pledging loyalty to Griffith is a major problem. We're talking about legendary warriors all lining up behind Griffith. Now, Guts is strong as hell, but right now, he's massively outnumbered and outgunned. He's gonna need a serious upgrade if he wants any real chance moving forward. Whether that's a new weapon, new allies, or something else entirely, he can't keep going like this forever. This is starting to feel like the gap between them is getting way too big. During this part of the story, we really start to see Guts slowly losing his mind, and it leads to one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire volume. Guts attacks Casca. And it's not some quick, angry swing either. You can feel the buildup, the anger, the rage, the helplessness, and the constant trauma. Everything finally boils over. And in that split second, everything that he's been suppressing just explodes outwards, and Casca ends up on the receiving end of it. Watching it happen is genuinely painful because you know how deeply he cares about her, even when she's not fully herself. It's one of those scenes that makes your stomach drop. You're sitting there thinking this is the last thing he would ever want to do, but the weight of everything he's been through has finally cracked him. It really drives home just how broken Guts is right now. He's not just physically exhausted, he's emotionally and mentally at his limit. And that moment hurts because it shows how close he is to completely losing himself. But right around the same time, we also get another appearance from the mysterious Shadow Dog character. Every single time this thing pops up, it feels more intentional. It doesn't just pop in randomly. There's this quiet and eerie presence to it that makes you pay attention. I'm starting to get the strong feeling that this Shadow Dog is going to be playing a much bigger role as the Millennium Falcon arc continues. It's clearly tied to something important, whether that's protecting certain characters, watching over events, or hinting at a larger supernatural force at work. I'm really curious to see how it fits into the bigger picture moving forward. We also cut back to Farnese and Serpico as they continue their journey after leaving the Holy Iron Chain Knights behind. Both of them are clearly wrestling with their pasts and trying to figure out what their new purpose in life is supposed to be now that everything they once believed in has been shaken. Farnese especially is going through a major internal crisis. She grew up as the daughter of one of the wealthiest and most powerful noble families in the kingdom. She was raised in luxury, but emotionally neglected, and she turned to extreme religious faith as a way to feel in control and find meaning. For a long time, she was basically the poster child of blind conviction, fanatical, harsh, and convinced her way was the only right way. But after everything that happened in Albion and seeing the truth about the world, she's starting to question literally everything that she was taught. It's like she's having to rebuild her entire identity from scratch. And then there's Serpico. This volume gives us some deep revelations into his character. We learn just about everything from his backstory, and it's pretty heavy stuff. We learn that he's actually Farnese's half-brother, the illegitimate son of her father from a servant woman. Now, while Farnese was raised in a mansion with every privilege, Serpico grew up in extreme poverty with his mentally struggling mother. And from a very young age, he had to basically be the parent, taking care of her and protecting her however he could. But the saddest part, and the thing that really stuck with me, is the tragic conclusion to his backstory. We learned that heretics were treated extremely harsh back then. If even one person in the family was accused of being a heretic, the entire family was doomed to burn at the stake. And in a moment of shock, young Serpico sees his mother and whispers mother under his breath. The church immediately catches it and demands an explanation. If it's true, then he would would have to die there as well. And to prove his loyalty, Farnese forces him to light the fire himself, making that moment deeply traumatizing for him. And you can tell it left a permanent scar on him, both emotionally and mentally. And it completely recontextualizes that one scene in the Conviction arc where Jerome tries to get a little bit more from Serpico's backstory. But even with all of that pain in his past, Serpico has spent years quietly protecting Farnese and acting as her voice of reason. Their relationship is super complicated. There's real loyalty there. He's always had her back, but you can also sense some underlying resentment. He grew up watching her live the life that he was denied, and she's used to treating him more like a tool than a person. Farnese is slowly starting to realize just how much she's taken him for granted all of these years, and you can see her beginning to grapple with that guilt. But right now, they're both out there searching for a new purpose. They're no longer bound by the church or their old role, and it feels like they're really trying to figure out who they are outside of all of that. It's a really interesting character arc for both of them, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But man, Miura, how do you even come up with this stuff? The way that he weaves these tragic backstories together is actually insane. I'm just sitting here like, respect. That is some next level storytelling. But back to the present, Guts starts reuniting with some familiar faces and the group slowly begins to come together in a really unexpected way. Isidro, Farnese, and Serpico all end up joining the crew. Farnese, trying way too hard to prove herself, makes it super awkward by dramatically cutting off her hair right there on the spot. And you can tell she's putting everything into showing that she's serious about leaving her old life behind. But the best part, you can actually see how much Guts has grown as a character. Instead of blowing up or telling her to get lost, he just looks at her and goes, "You didn't need to be so dramatic about it. Just join, bro." It's such a small line, but it says so much. Even Puck notices and points it out. The old Guts would have never said something like that. That moment really shows how far he's come. He's still the same blunt, no-nonsense guy, but there's a tiny bit more patience and humanity in him now. We're also introduced to a brand new character who brings a completely different kind of energy and knowledge to the group, Shiruka. Now, I know there are some gripes online about how you're supposed to be pronouncing her name. I know a lot of people get it wrong and call her Shriek. In an American dialect, you would say Shirka, and in the Japanese pronunciation, it would be somewhere along the realm of Shiruka. So from here on out, I will be referring to her as Shiruka. So from what we see in this volume, Shiruka is a young witch apprentice. She's super serious, a bit arrogant, and talks like a little adult. She's extremely knowledgeable about magic, the astral world, spirits, and how all of that supernatural stuff actually works. She's a very no-nonsense character and doesn't hesitate to call people out when they're being stupid or reckless. What's really important though is how big of a step forward her joining the group actually is. Guts and the crew desperately needed an upgrade, and Shiruka basically delivers exactly that. She brings real magical knowledge and support that the team has been completely missing, and for the first time they have someone who actually understands the rules of the astral plane. She can sense danger before it arrives and knows how to use magic to protect and fight back, and honestly, it feels like a major turning point in the story. Guts finally has someone who can help him deal with the supernatural side of things, instead of just brute forcing everything with the Dragon Slayer. Shiruka's arrival gives the whole group a much needed boost, and you can already tell that she's going to be a key player moving forward. We also get to meet the mistress in charge of Shiruka, Flora, the Grandmaster Witch, and I gotta say, she's actually really cool. Now, she doesn't drop any massive game-changing revelations for Guts. He's mostly focused on asking about the Behelit and wanting to understand more about the brand of sacrifice and how she knows so much about all of this stuff. But what's really interesting though is that she's the one who properly introduces the concept of magic into the story in a more serious way. Even though Shiruka already gave us some exposition on elementals in the astral world, hearing it straight from the Grandmaster herself just hits different. She speaks with more authority and it holds much more weight in my opinion. Now, while she doesn't really tell the reader anything brand new, we already knew most of this stuff, she does explain the astral plane a lot more clearly. She also gives Guts a special talisman that helps him sleep better at night, which is a small but genuinely nice gesture. It's not a perfect solution, but it gives him a little bit of reprieve, a few days where he can actually rest without being constantly tormented by spirits. And right before they leave, we get this really cool, quiet reveal. Flora and the Skeleton Knight Knight are actually old buddies. And it's not some huge over-the-top spectacle, but seeing those two together was honestly such an epic little moment. I know we probably won't be seeing much more of either of them, but that short interaction was low-key one of my favorite parts of this volume. The party eventually makes their way to a remote village that's facing growing danger from mysterious creatures. Now I gotta be honest, I think that they're trying to set up the trolls as the next big bad for this little mini arc coming up, but they honestly just felt kind of trite to me. I never really felt worried or threatened by them. To me, they just didn't really land as being all of that particularly scary or intimidating. But this volume closes out with Shiruka giving us a little taste of her power. She shows that she can communicate with the group through their minds, which is pretty cool. Moving forward, especially during battles, being able to talk to each other mentally and know what's going on in real time is going to be super helpful. That said, it does feel like what's coming next is mostly going to be a showcase for all of the new magical tools and weapons that Flora and Shiruka provided to the group. And there's one last thing I wanted to mention. Shiruka notices something eerie about Guts' Dragon Slayer. Even though he's not getting any brand new weapons right now, there's clearly something special and a little unsettling about the sword that Godot made for him. Now, I have no idea what it is yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a major plot point moving forward. I'm assuming this ties into the big upgrade that I think Guts is going to need soon, because right now he's definitely going to need something extra if he wants to keep up with everything that's coming. And to wrap things up, here are my final thoughts about Berserk's Deluxe Edition Volume 8 and the start of the Millennium Falcon Arc. The beginning of this book is straight up insane. That opening fight with Guts going after Griffith and Zod jumping in to protect him was absolutely amazing. For me, that whole sequence was the highlight of the volume, and I don't think anything else quite topped that moment for me. We also get some short but important glimpses into Griffith's side of the story. We see him quietly building his new army, and it's clear that he's still the same calculating person who's more than willing to manipulate anyone to achieve his dream of ruling a kingdom. And man, he's really good at it. He's already gathering some seriously powerful players on his side, and it's starting to look like a massive problem for Guts and the crew. I really enjoyed getting those deeper revelations about Farnese and Serpico's backstory. It was such a treat, finally understanding where they both came from. I'm really hoping Serpico and Guts can warm up to each other. In battle, they seem like they'd be perfect together, but when things are quiet, you can still feel some tension between them, and I hope that gets solved down the line. I also love the introduction of the astral plane, elementals, and magic in general. Getting the main characters more comfortable with that side of the world feels like it's going to be really important moving forward, especially when they eventually have to face Griffith's growing forces. Overall, this volume sets up so many interesting things. I'm genuinely excited to see where the Millennium Falcon Arc goes from here. It's shaping up to be something special. Now, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos regarding the Berserk manga, feel free to hit the link and check it out. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?